this is Christine.
Hello, this is Heather.
And we took a left at the valley.
Fantastic.
And we... Oh, should I say it too? No, sorry.
Sure.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with the religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith in unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
Coming at you from colorful BC, this is Left of the Valley. My name is Kevin, and I think the surest sign there is intelligent life in the universe is the fact that it has never tried to contact us.
That is definitely a smart decision.
Yeah.
Joining me as usual is a team that will tell you to not worry about the world coming to an end today. It's already tomorrow in Australia.
Exactly. And it's interesting because it's through every apocalypse, they always are telling what's going on first.
Exactly.
They are our canary.
Doctors gave her 6 months to live, but she couldn't pay the bill, so she got a 6 month extension. Nancy.
I like that one. I might extend that every 6 months.
Sure, why not? She'll tell you that you can't have everything. Where would you put it all?
Exactly. You could have an extendable charm on your purse.
There you go.
Then you can put everything in your purse.
She couldn't fix her car brakes, so she made her car She made her car horn louder.
I think that I could probably figure that out. I'm a fan of something that sounds a little fancy anyways.
That's very apropos. Ladies, thank you for joining me. Hope you had a great
pleasure.
It
week.
was actually an interesting week for sure.
Oh, well, today we'll be talking to our old friend Robert Stanley of the Right to Reason podcast. But first, let's do a bit of chit-chat because God knows we got lots to go through this week. Oh, my God.
So much.
All right.
It was such a dull week. I'm surprised you could pull anything out of it.
Yeah, of course.
We'll struggle along.
Very dull week. Very dull week. Did you guys hear about this report from National Geographic? The Wondiwoi tree kangaroo has been found again.
It's
apparently,
so cute.
Apparently, this creature vanished for 90 years. It was thought to be extinct. It's a kangaroo, but it's kind of like monkey-like. It's got like think of it as a small kangaroo with huge arms as well. So it kind of hops like a kangaroo, but it also can climb.
It's adorable.
Where was it? Did they find where it was hiding?
Actually, sort of. It was in the montane forest of New Guinea. It was last seen in 1928.
And then it said, I'm done with these people. I'm leaving.
Exactly.
I can't believe
I'm hiding for a while.
That's right. It'll get better.
Did you guys hear this story about there's a picture out there that Trump supporters are sharing? There's a fake picture of him rescuing hurricane victims.
No, but it gets better because he's handing them
him a red hat.
a MAGA hat.
He's in a boat and the guy's in water and he's reaching out and the picture shows Donald Trump handing over something red. This cult of Trump thing is actually real.
Do people actually think it's real though?
It was shared 250,000 times.
It's a beautiful Photoshop, though. It really looks great.
With the caption, you won't see this in the news.
I have a feeling it's been shared by people who are like, this is ridiculous.
Well, I hope so.
I mean, the first clue is that when you look at the boat that he's in, he's there with his suit and tie.
Yeah, he's in a suit and tie in a freaking dinghy in the flood.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure Donald Trump, of all people, would do that.
Yeah, I don't think he'd have a dinghy. He'd have like one of those floats.
A yacht?
Like the emperors go down the river on.
There's no way
with like the long poles and the subjects and
there's no way in hell he'd get his hands dirty anyway.
Exactly.
The original picture was actually of workers rescuing people in the flood in Texas in 2015. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, I see that so much from the conservative right. These fake things all over the place. I'd be curious to see how many fake pictures, stories there is left versus right. I'll bet you it's 10 to 1.
Is there a website that would have a collection of fake photos or news over the last years? It'd be interesting.
It would be interesting.
Yeah. Is there...
A fake gallery.
Yeah, a fake gallery.
Yeah, everything that's been fake in the news and posted in one spot.
That would be super, super interesting.
That would be an interesting website.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I mean, there are a lot of fact-checking websites. I just wonder whether there are any that actually post them on a
Regular
time, like on a weekly basis. That would be fun to. If any of our listeners know of one, please let us know.
Yeah.
There would be a massive spike in the last 2 years.
Well, speaking of Marmalade Man, do you guys hear that China actually won't let the U.S. Navy dock their ships anymore in Hong Kong?
Understandable.
I don't blame them.
Amid the trade tensions.
Like, you can't piss off everyone and then expect everyone to be like, oh, we're still your best friends.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's like,
Actions have consequences.
Yeah, you piss in their Cheerios, they're not going to let you sit at your table anymore.
Yeah.
There's a dog.
somebody close that door.
No. It's a dog.
It's the intelligent life.
The intelligent life form we're talking about.
They found us.
Yeah.
Did you guys also see the clip of Emmanuel Macron, the French president, that rejected the trade, decided to reject trade with countries outside of the Paris Climate Pact?
I didn't.
Which is interesting
see
because the only country that's like that is the U.S. He told the UN Assembly that U.S. He told that to the UN Assembly. The U.S. withdrew in June 2017. Macron also decided to rebut Trump's isolationist message, and he is ready to take the mantle of global leadership.
Good.
To tremendous applause. He said, quote, only collective action allows upholding of sovereignty and equality of the people. I've got a short clip here of the difference you hear between Macron and Donald Trump at the UN.
Radically different approaches.
We reject the ideology of globalism, and we embrace the doctrine of patriotism.
Cette voie, je l'affirme ici.
This doctrine is one of unilateralism.
De l'unilatéralisme.
It leads directly to isolationism and to conflict.
Et au conflit.
At times directly referring to the US President, Emmanuel Macron urged world leaders to continue working together.
Please, do not get used to it. Don't become indifferent. Do not accept the erosion of multilateralism. Do not accept our history unraveling. I am not getting used to this.
After both speeches were made, it seems the main political divide now is between globalists and nationalists.
And that was Emmanuel Macron.
And no one laughed when he said that.
No, exactly.
That literally made my day.
Well, you preempted my next story.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It brings me so much joy.
I had to laugh at this because it is such an amazing story. Of course, is the UN laughing at Donald Trump.
Well, it was just so ridiculous. How could you not?
This man goes in front of the world thinking that he pulls out the same kind of stupid speech he pulls at one of his rallies, thinking that the people are going to react the same way. And the entire world told the man who once said in his campaign that the world is laughing at the U.S., laughed at him. And it's such a brilliant little clip, and I have it right here. I've got to play this for you guys. Listen to this.
It was the day the world, or at least the United Nations, gave a listen to Donald Trump and then laughed. Not with him, at him.
My administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
That's my favorite part.
Trump later said he meant it as a laugh line.
Yeah, sure he did.
I mean, that was the perfect Emperor's New Clothes moment, was it not?
And I hope, I'm being super optimistic here. I can only hope he gave him a bit of a wake-up call, but I really doubt it.
I doubt it.
Well, no, I think he just twisted it in his brain.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the problems is that when Donald Trump was growing up and with his privileged status and with his father that wanted, Donald to eventually take over his empire, and his dad knew all of the shortcuts and knew how to work the system and so forth. So he taught Donald how to subvert everything in his favor. And what happened with Donald is that he never really learned the lesson of consequences. So he thinks he can say and do anything, and it's okay, even if it's something he makes up at the spur of the moment, even if he changes his mind, because nobody has effectively caught him and made him pay the price for, lying.
Yeah.
And so, he can say all of these things and do all of these things with no expectation of any consequences whatsoever.
No.
Because he can buy or lie his way out of anything.
And it's great to see the UN do this, because his international policy so far has been bully your way to get his way, and push Canada around, push the other countries around, start trade wars here, thinking I've got the big stick. And now the UN is laughing at him. You know what? Your big stick ain't working, buddy.
Yeah.
It ain't working.
Yeah.
And anyway, I hope you learned something from this. But
I don't know.
I
I mean,
really don't.
Christina was saying that his mind is twisted. And
Well, he can hear the laughter and be like, oh, well, they were laughing with me. Because he probably has the ability to just, as a coping mechanism maybe for life, he just changes reality in his brain, his perception of reality.
Yeah.
Well, if not him, at least I hope his supporters are seeing how ridiculous this is.
Yeah. But the thing is, a lot of his supporters think the UN is stupid. They don't understand why
they also
they're
think
laughing.
it's some kind of cabal of pedophile that's ruling the world that somehow Donald Trump's going to take down.
Oh my gosh, ridiculous.
It's bloody stupid. Well, speaking of Orange Julius... the ongoing trade war that we have with Donald Trump. Did you catch a little story this week about how Donald Trump lied about Canada asking for an audience?
Yes.
Jesus Christ. He says he wasn't happy with their attitude about not signing, so he decided not to give Justin Trudeau an audience. The problem is that after that they went to the Canadian Prime Minister's office and said, "Well, we never asked for an audience with Trump. I don't know what he's talking about."
I know he said the same thing about the Iranian president. The Iranian guy says, we never asked to talk to him either.
Do you think if this guy actually lies down at night and he has a dream like that and he wakes up in the morning and he thinks this actually happened?
Yes.
It's that demented. He fantasizes about a moment. Oh, I really wish I could tell Justin how I hate his hair. And I really want to, tell him he better sign those deals. I'm not buying those cars. And then he goes in front of the press. He actually tells him that. It's what the hell goes on in that man's mind is beyond me.
Well, what goes on in his mind is, well, that sounds good. I'll do it.
Yeah.
It makes me look really good. I'll do it.
Oh, my God. It's amazing.
Unbelievable. But his
what amazing
time,
times we're in.
It's going to collapse. It's just a matter of when.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know, Nancy. I'm very. I don't want. I like to be optimistic, but
what I do is I expect the worst, so that I can't be disappointed, and I can only
hope for the best. I expect the worst.
Exactly.
No, it will. The timing probably isn't going to be what we want, and there's probably going to be things that are going to be altered or destroyed before we get there, but we'll get there.
I honestly hope he lasts his 4 years, but the Senate and House is taken by the Democrats, so they could just not let him do anything. Because if you kick him out now, Pence is there.
Yeah. And, of course, the story of the week, Brett Kavanaugh.
Senate hearing.
Senate hearing. So let's listen to this.
When I got to the small gathering, people were drinking beer in a small living room, family room type area on the first floor of the house. I drank one beer. Brett and Mark were visibly drunk. Early in the evening, I went up a very narrow set of stairs leading from the living room to a second floor to use the restroom. When I got to the top of the stairs, I was pushed from behind into a bedroom across from the bathroom. I couldn't see who pushed me. Brett and Mark came into the bedroom and locked the door behind them. There was music playing in the bedroom. It was turned up louder by either Brett or Mark once we were in the room. I was pushed onto the bed, and Brett got on top of me. He began running his hands over my body and grinding into me. I yelled, hoping that someone downstairs might hear me, and I tried to get away from him, but his weight was heavy. Brett groped me and tried to take off my clothes. He had a hard time because he was very inebriated and because I was wearing a one-piece bathing suit underneath my clothing. I believed he was going to rape me. I tried to yell for help. When I did, Brett put his hand over my mouth to stop me from yelling.
And that, of course, was part of the testimony of Christine Blasey Ford. A very emotional, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, a very emotional and powerful testimony about an encounter she had with Judge Brett Kavanaugh, in high school. Where do we start with this story?
Can I jump here? Just before we start talking about it, are you able to just mark the time? I was wondering if before we go into her testimony, if we can just let people know that it's coming. Just say we're gonna listen to the testimony from the Kavanaugh hearings.
Well, we could, but I'm not sure why.
Well, just because some people might
bit of a
not
trigger warning.
be in a place to listen to that because it is very raw, and a lot of people who have dealt with similar things might put them in a place that's not great.
Okay. So let me do this.
They can just skip or something.
All right, so where do we start with this?
I believe her.
It's hard not to.
Well,
I 100% believe her.
Is that here you have this decent, educated woman who is not only educated, but she's educated in psychology, in research psychology, and how trauma and PSD affects the brain.
Yes.
So not only is she a woman who was traumatized, but she's also a teacher and a woman with a PhD and 2 master's degrees. So where can you find someone who is more knowledgeable and credible than Christina Ford?
And for anyone who thinks that, she has these master's degrees so she can fake the trauma. But it's no, she probably went into those fields because she wanted to understand her trauma.
Yeah. I think I want to talk about, because let's face it, this entire story has proved for once and for all we shouldn't call them the United States of America, because they're not united at all.
Yeah.
They're the divided States of America at this point. And I've been hearing a lot of pushback on her testimony and stuff like that from people that are actually close to me, which
really,
I'm actually incredibly surprised. Let's get some facts real straight here. First of all, this woman did not want to come forward.
No.
She kept this story hidden to the point that it affected her own personal life, to the point at which she bought a house. She insisted on having a second front door as a way to escape her own house. So this is how traumatic this was. Her husband didn't understand why, and she had fights with her husband. She never explained to her husband that this is how she felt. She needed a route to escape. Second of all, when she heard that Brett Kavanaugh was going to be nominated as a justice of the Supreme Court.
It was actually when she heard that he was on the short list.
Oh yeah, exactly.
She didn't want him to even be nominated.
She didn't go public with that. What she did, she wrote letters. She wrote letters to the committees saying, you guys should really reconsider because I know a bit about Brett. Now, of course, she still didn't want to come forward with this until essentially the Republicans say, well, if you don't testify, we're going ahead with it. So the Republicans kind of forced her to testify in a way. They said, you better do it Monday or otherwise we're going ahead with it. And she negotiated Thursday, which was this week.
And the reason she went public with it is because reporters found out that there was an accusation and they found her and were harassing her.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, my name's out. I might as well just tell the story how I want it told.
So the idea that is some people are putting out there that she's got something to gain from this is completely wrong and stupid and absurd. She's got nothing to gain by this.
I think one of the things that was so crystal clear was that all of the news media were talking about the parallels between Christina Ford and how Anita Hill was treated. And as it was playing out up to the time that she raised her hand to be, to testify under oath, the parallels were just dramatically the same. Treating women as though they, were coming forward with something to gain, and they could be heard, but not believed, and certainly wouldn't change the trajectory of the nomination process. And when she started to give her testimony, and it was obvious that she was so credible, there was a feeling of, oh, maybe, the Me Too movement and everything else will give women, more power in coming forward, and she will be believed. And it at the end of Thursday, it didn't look like it was going to happen.
No.
And that, to me, the difference between 1991 and now, where women who come forward are still looked at as lying, is just devastating.
I think it's changing now.
Her lawyers were smart about this because they actually paid for her to get a polygraph, and they did that. Even though she was questioned by the prosecution, say, why'd you get a polygraph and who paid for it? And then the lawyers came out and says, no, we did. It wasn't the Democratic Party that did this. And it wasn't the Democratic Party putting her on stand to do some kind of political showdown. No, it was her and her lawyers.
Oh, and then there was that wonderful moment when the prosecutor that they brought in from Arizona said, well, who's paying for all of this? Where are you getting all this money? And the lawyer said, we're doing this pro bono.
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought, yay!
Really? Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that.
They believed in her and what she was doing, to the extent that they wouldn't have mentioned it. I'm sure they would. But, we're doing this pro bono. And at that point, it gave her so much more credibility.
Now the Republicans also hired, like you said, a woman prosecutor, because there's no way in hell they would have had a man prosecute her at the same time, because that would just look really, really awful. So the Republicans pull out all the stops. And even the prosecutor, whose name escapes me right now, basically said at the end, I couldn't punch any holes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Yeah, Mitchell.
I could.
Rachel Mitchell.
That's right. She says, I couldn't punch any holes in that story. It was just pretty solid. She couldn't do anything about it. I mean, it was
because it's true.
Well, most likely because it's true. Let's not kid ourselves. There is a huge political component to this, because if Kavanaugh is there at the Supreme Court, you're putting a very ultra-conservative, socially conservative justice in the Supreme Court, and this is what the Republicans are desperately trying to do right now, because they know they're on the losing side of history. So they're trying right now so hard. This is why they're rushing him in, because when Obama was trying to choose a judge, they had no problem leaving the position open for over a year. So now all of a sudden everything needs to be rushed to get Kavanaugh in there? No, they know full well that they're about to lose the next election, and they know full well that this is their last chance to put a conservative judge in there.
I know, and can you imagine anything more? I was going to use the word evil, but that's not really what I'm going for.
Corrupt?
But that to put a justice on the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the land, where there should be the most integrity and the most belief and most confidence, of anybody. We need to have, the Americans need to have confidence. Yes. And what do the Republicans do but subvert the entire process, cut the rules, change the rules, plow through regardless of what the facts are, in order to get one guy nominated? What does this do to the democratic process?
Yeah.
It was just unbelievable, but not unbelievable because they were doing it. That to me is the worst possible way for the Senate and for government to behave.
This is a top court of the land. I mean, first of all,
he's already on the second top court.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll rebuke everybody that's saying that basically he's on trial. He's not on trial. No. Okay, he's not. He's not going to prison for what he did there. He's essentially doing a job application. Right, look at it this way. He's doing a job application, and you think, hey, he looks like a pretty good candidate. And then somebody comes in and say, you know what, I kind of know this guy. You might want to look deeper into his background. And then, of course, he pulls up his arm. Oh, my God, I can't believe I'm being smeared. But when they say, well, let's have the FBI investigate that to clear your name. If you think you're being smeared and you want to clear your name, you would jump at the occasion of having the FBI go into this. Oh, no, I'm okay. No, we don't need this.
No, I'm innocent.
He's got something to hide for sure. And the idea that people are putting out there that somehow this is a feminist, Me Too, revenge scheme is ludicrous. This is the highest court of the land. If you let a guy like Kavanaugh go in and he is dodged by these allegations, every judgment he makes that has anything that's any close to women's right or anything like that is going to be questioned. And that's not what you want to keep the faith of the American people into the process, into the Supreme Court. So if he was a man with any ounce of integrity, he would look at this and say, I'm innocent. He would say, claim his innocence. I'm innocent. However, the Supreme Court is more important than my personal reputation. I have to recuse myself until my name is clear. Then I'll come back at it. If he had any ounce of integrity and belief in what he's doing in the system, this is what he would do.
Which he doesn't.
Which, of course, he's not doing. Because at that point, it's just about, I want to get in there.
Well, the ray of hope is that because of Senator Jeff Flake, the FBI is now going to conduct background checks.
Yes.
If there's something there where he lied about his drinking, about his interaction with women, or anything else that they find, at that point, he's toast.
Well,
and I'm thinking the toaster at this point is on. The bread has dropped, and we're just gonna, see. I do have confidence in the FBI to pull out anything that was. Even though he underwent 6 background checks, now they know what to ask that they may have not have asked before.
One of the most stark differences in both Dr. Ford's and Kavanaugh's testimonies were, with Dr. Ford's, you could tell when they were getting to the nitty-gritties, she was trying to remember the details and was very honest. And when people asked in different ways, she gave the same answer. It was consistent. With Kavanaugh, with the tiny things, he lied. Like the alumni comment in his yearbook, saying how, with this woman who they said they were alumni of this woman, saying how, we were just really good friends with her. But it's like, no, that's obviously you guys, saying, we, had sexual conquest with this girl. We're her alumni. And, if this was, we just really liked her, you would have told her. And they interviewed this woman, I think a news organization, and she's like, I had no idea about this. And, that's not, what he said is not true. That comment was obviously them taking pride in sexual activities with me. And it's like the tiny things Kavanaugh lied and dodged. How many beers did you
Wait a minute,
drink?
are you saying you don't believe he likes beer?
Oh, no.
He likes beer.
I believe he likes beer. But the fact is, he when they asked, how much beers is too many beers? He's like, fudge. Because he knew that if he gave a number, that they could then go and ask people, how many beers did he drink? And he drank way more than that.
Yeah. Well.
And then it was amazing because with Klobuchar, he said, "Well, how many?
Oh my gosh,
do you
that
black
made me
out?
so mad.
How many beers have you ever blacked out? How
Literally.
Many?
And then he gets mad. And it's like, you're not showing very good temperament there, buddy.
The thing is, it's like
you're supposed to be Supreme Court justice. Come on.
Yeah, and he asked Senator Whitehouse the same thing. Do you like? I'm curious, what kind of things? What do you like to drink? And it was like, how many beers did you have before you came to Congress, Senate today?
Privileged do you need to feel that you can backtalk the Senate? How privileged do you need to be?
That's a good point.
Well, I'm really hoping that one of the things that, and this is a little off the mark here, but I'm really and truly hoping that one of the results of this is that the Me Too movement and women who have suffered sexual assault of one kind or another will be more believed.
I can't. So in America, there's a hotline for rape victims, and over the last week, before
200% spike.
No, on the day of the hearing, it was a 207% spike of people calling in. The previous week was a 57% spike, and so it has been raising a lot of awareness for women who think that, because for me personally, growing up, there were so many times where I told people about sexual assault And it was just like, oh, whatever. We'll, like, ground them for a day. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so in our culture, it's very much minimized, and women are taught that there's no point. Like, nothing will happen. So why even tell anyone?
The more women who get into government in the next year or two, the more women that come in, the more this is going to work in our favor.
Just one last thing before we move on there. There was a Fox News, Chris Wallace. He's a conservative guy, and I was just amazed by his answer because, first of all, he was one of the guys on Fox News to basically say this is devastating for the Republicans. For him to say that to begin with, to say that
it is,
it's amazing. And he says she's incredibly credible, and then he tells a story about his own daughters. After this, came to him and told him stories that he had no idea about that what happened to them in high school. So the idea that, why did she wait 30 years to tell this story because she's got some kind of revenge or something or something to gain? No, it's not that at all. It happens. It's very frequent. It's kind of a shame that a lot of women hold on to these secrets and they really shouldn't. But it's because of shame.
And it's turned around on us. It's like, oh, well, you shouldn't have done this. You shouldn't have worn that. You shouldn't have drank that. It's not like, oh my gosh, it's like if you're driving perfectly, but someone else comes and T-bones you, and if everyone was like, oh, well, it doesn't matter what that person did. You shouldn't have been driving. Yeah. You shouldn't have been driving that car. Why did you leave 5 minutes early? When it should be like, well, you did nothing wrong. Yeah. This other person fucked up. Excuse my language. But it's like...
I can understand why you'd be reticent to get back into a car after that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What is the statistic? Is it 1 in 5 or 1 in 3?
1 in 3.
1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men.
Of the 3 women sitting in this room, at least one of us has a story that they've never told.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know, I do.
I could tell you the story about
and probably never will.
How I was sexually groped by myself. Anyway,
you're breaking down the moment, Kevin.
My dear Nancy, you got a top 10 for us?
Why not? Why not? Alrighty, this is kind of an uplifting one. We need a little uplifting one. This is from the U.S. News and World Report, and it has to do with the best places to raise kids. And
America.
And this is from this year. So according to U.S. News and World Reports, they do this annually, best countries rankings. So we'll start with number 10 and go from there. And I'm not going to tell you in advance if any of the countries that we know in North America are on or off.
I don't think many in North America. I think it's going to be a lot of Scandinavia, like Denmark. I'm voting Denmark number 1.
Okay, number 10. Or Norway. Okay, and they look at the following 8 attributes: care for human rights, family friendly, gender equality, happiness, income equality, level of safety, well-developed public education system, and well-developed healthcare system.
Also not America.
So that's a pretty fair.
I think Canada's going to be in the top 10.
I think it might be like 9.
Yeah, 9 or 8. Something
okay,
like
let's do number 10. Number 10 is Austria.
Oh, interesting.
And Austria is also in the top 10 best countries for headquartering a corporation and transparency.
Ooh, I do love Austria. It is a gorgeous country.
Number 9, Australia.
Of course.
Oh, okay.
And they're also in the top 10 countries for cultural influence, most modern, quality of life, most forward-looking, best country to headquarter a corporation, retiring comfortably, traveling alone, green living, investing in education women, and best countries overall. Let's all move. We're going. No, we're not moving to Australia.
No, but we can have a summer
to raise
cottage.
Our children.
We can have a summer cottage here.
Do you know how hot it is in Australia?
That's true.
They had to create a new color on their heat scale because it got in the 50s.
Okay, well then we're forced.
Yeah, but that's
well then we're forced to move on. We're not moving to Australia.
No, Norway.
We're moving on.
We're moving to
Number
Norway.
8. How about New Zealand?
Yay!
Okay. New Zealand.
You guys are way too enthusiastic about an island.
Yeah, okay.
New Zealand is the most gorgeous country on this planet. Hello, have
take
you
offense to
watched
that.
Lord of the Rings?
I think Canada's got as many.
No.
Anyway.
New Zealand is like a tiny microcosm of Canada. It's gorgeous. It's
Okay.
all BC, except in a country.
They are also in the top 10 for traveling alone, adventure, retiring comfortably, most modern, and quality of life.
Okay, that's where I'm moving.
That's a contender.
Yep.
Okay. Moving on, keeping that in mind.
Yep.
And then moving on, number 7, Switzerland.
Of course.
Also in the top 10 for a whole bunch of stuff. Business-friendly, cultural influence, modern entrepreneurship, quality of life, starting a business, and on and on and on and on. Retiring comfortably, education, women, and one of the best countries overall.
Oh, yeah. Swiss women, absolutely.
Yeah, there we go. So, number 6 is the Netherlands.
Of course.
They're also in the top 10 for business-friendly entrepreneurs, most modern, quality of life, all of the things that we mentioned before. And the Netherlands is number 6, and
Good
they're
job,
right up
Netherlands.
there. Okay, number 5 is a country that you might have heard of. You know,
Canada?
every now and then it's in the news, called Canada.
Yay!
We just kicked New Zealand's ass.
Yeah,
Netherlands.
and they are number 5 for all of
for
this.
us.
So maybe we're not moving to Australia or
no, we're not
Switzerland yet.
moving.
Well,
We'll have a summer home there,
The
that's
reason I like New Zealand is because
Because you want to be a hobbit.
no, but they're I love the what's it called scenery. They have the most gorgeous mountain ranges on the south coast. Oh, it's like beautiful.
Number 4, let's see, on this list, number 4, Finland.
of course.
Yeah.
Now, number 3, Norway.
All the Scandinavian
do
countries.
we see where we're going with the top 5?
I still
You have
think
Finland
Denmark's
and
gonna
Norway
win.
at number 3?
Number 3,
I still think
What the hell
Denmark's
is number
gonna win.
2? Heaven?
Sweden.
Pretty
So
close.
yeah, heaven.
It's pretty damn
Okay,
close.
so by process of elimination, what's number 1?
Denmark.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I guessed it from the beginning.
I'm seeing a trend in these
Yeah.
countries.
Yeah.
It seemed these
Of course.
quote unquote socialist
you
countries.
don't understand. For raising kids, okay, Denmark, they don't have prom. They have like a year. Your last year, you get a bus, and you vamp out this bus, and it's a party bus, and you literally go drinking with your friends in this bus.
Sounds
I
like a
want
prom.
that.
Now, I've been
No,
to,
it's
I-
amazing.
It's wonderful. I've been to Denmark many, many, many years ago, but the attitude.
Where haven't you been, Nancy?
Several places I have. Mostly because I don't want to go. But no, there are a lot of places I haven't. But the attitude, the general outlook of the people in Denmark, because they have a very strong social system. They've got so many safety nets.
Yeah.
You know, but.
You know,
It's a great country and people are great.
If people were to ask me to move to another country, I would really have to find something incredible for me to move away from this country, from Canada, because it really is a good country.
I do love Canada.
But
Yes.
so a place like Norway or Denmark,
Yep.
I would be tempted.
And it's
Denmark,
super cold.
it's a series of, I think, 3 or 4 islands, and each one has its own character. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, and the people are great. It's a contender if you
Yeah,
can take
absolutely.
the weather, because
Of course.
Yep.
They have
cold.
reindeer.
Plus, if you drive for a few hours, you can go to a different country. Rather, here you can drive for a few hours and find a different city.
yeah,
Yep.
that's true.
In the same province.
Yeah. Is there another country that you could think of that should have been on that list that isn't?
Not really. The Scandinavian ones are kind of take all the lists for good things, and they were all included. I can't really think of anybody else. Because like I find the
I would almost venture to try Japan.
yeah.
You know, Japan is pretty modern. You know, they're very safe.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I can really reproach to Japan, they're tad xenophobic. But besides that, I mean, it's a pretty
Yeah.
cool country.
Yeah, for raising children.
Well, their education system is incredible in
But
Japan.
I find their atmosphere around kids is very intense.
Here's something really interesting. The countries that are listed as the best countries to raise children are not necessarily the countries with the best education system. And maybe we'll do that one day.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Because you also want to look at, like, because in Japan, it's also very, like, kids aren't encouraged to go out of the mainstream. They're very much like, okay, find your lot in life and stick with it. And even if, like, it's like a desk job, they aren't encouraged to, like, go explore and adventure. It's very much you're one of the bees in the hive.
Yeah, well, they can karate chop the desk. All right, time for another brilliant moment.
Yes.
It's your show.
Oh, you're not going to finish, Kevin?
No, you're taking over now.
All right. I guess it's another brilliant moment brought to you by religion. So, guys, I have figured out how I can get my hands on a new hand.
Yay! You
Now,
should
I'd
have
like to
said
make the-
how you can get a hand on a new hand.
So what's the sound of one hand clapping? Is that it?
I'm clapping my chest.
You guys are doing it all wrong.
So we're GoFundMe and we're giving you a prosthetic. That's it?
Nope.
Robotic.
Apparently,
Are you going to kill someone and steal their hand and stitch it on your own?
No, we're gonna do that Lizard Man injection in Spider-Man, and she's gonna grow. a new hand.
Or the one from Iron Man.
Yeah,
Except then she'll explode.
but that's probably not the reason, right?
Thanks.
Kirsten is sitting there with the smirk,
She's about to kill us.
smile on her face.
She's about to kill us.
She's got a better idea than any of this. So
I've got it all figured out.
All right,
She's
lay it
got
on us,
it,
girl.
So apparently, in heaven,
You have to die first.
No, you don't. There is a warehouse of body parts.
Oh, that sounds suspiciously like a cat cur moment.
You heard me right.
Gosh.
That's a cat cur
Serial
moment, isn't it?
killer's heaven.
Yeah, according to our favorite sushi lady.
Oh.
Apparently, it's similar to what we have on Earth. It's just a lot more supernatural. Apparently, you can even see creation and creativity all over the universe in the reception desk alone.
What happens when someone fucks up and, like, mixes the wrong body part?
Just. Here's how it works. You pray for a body part for either yourself or someone else. Yeah, I know. So unexpected. And this sends a requisition to the warehouse where an angel is called.
That's a lot of bureaucracy.
Ding, ding. Hey, Bob.
Oh, it gets better.
There's a requisition. Kevin wants a bigger penis.
So we're all out of those.
Get in line.
They then take it to another place that we apparently don't know about, and it gets approved and stamped, and it'll get approved and stamped for either now, when, like, it comes in, or for later. So
How is this heaven when there is that much paperwork?
It's a bureaucracy.
I was thinking the same thing.
And when this is done, the angel goes back to the warehouse, or to the back of the warehouse, and that's where all the body parts are, and they're in clear bins, not plastic, just clear bins that float in the air.
That's creepy.
Oh my gosh.
And it's all very organized. And let's not forget, the best part, all the parts are alive.
Oh!
So you saying there's a floating bin of penises somewhere in a warehouse in
They're
heaven?
like twitching.
Another reason not to be who wants to go to this heaven?
Oh my god!
No,
what if you need like a new head? Does the brain have a conscience?
I guess they'd have to pull the bits and pieces together, but I would guess so. Like, they're all kept...
Or is it just like a bin of amygdalae?
No, but...
a bin of, like, your frontal cortex?
Yeah, I mean, are all the brains thinking? Are all the mouths talking? Are all the legs
They're
kicking?
all working.
They're all...
That sounds fucking terrifying.
This needs to be an animated feature.
So then,
Right.
the chosen body part is then wrapped in a box, yes. Then some unfortunate angel who did some stupid shit to end up in this job takes it.
Good job, Carl.
Carl. They take it and they go down to Earth and they walk with this box through said person who is receiving parts and magically it appears in the correct spot on their body.
Well, I better hope it appears in the correct spot.
So all the all the surgeons, that's it, gone.
Yeah.
They're
just
out of a
butchers,
job.
these people.
Apparently, it's a very, very hard process to be approved of this, seeing as no one's been approved so far.
Exactly.
So if you're on Earth, I may be preempting you, but if you're on Earth and you need a body part, you pray, and then the angel comes to Earth and gives it to you?
Once it goes through all of the requisitional
all
processes.
the bureaucracy, which can take millennia.
Do you know how long it takes?
Millennia.
It can take a long time if you're put on the waiting list, which it kind of sounds like everybody is. So
this explains
why. I'm just wondering. I'm scheduled to have my torn rotator cuff on my right shoulder operated on this month. Should I cancel and just pray?
Probably not.
Maybe if we got.
I mean, I don't want to put my orthopedic surgeon out of business, but on the other hand, if I can just
you have heaven insurance.
I've got angel insurance.
We just have to.
Heaven insurance.
I guess if we get the more people praying about it, maybe it'll happen faster because there will be more requisitions in. Be like, oh, this must be an awesome lady. We better get this done.
What you guys might also not know is all these angels do an internship at Home Depot first.
Oh, shit.
So they can have the skills to manage a warehouse in heaven.
Exactly.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, that right there explains.
You know what? I'm just
everything.
picturing this long line of requisitions just piling up on this desk, but this one angel just doesn't give a fuck. So he's just like sitting in the corner, just like
the inbox,
binging Netflix, just being like, "Fuck it, I don't care."
So I guess I'm gonna have. Are atheists eligible?
Probably
on
not.
the prayer list. We gotta find that out. Or
I mean, I guess if you pray, it just says you have to pray for it, and a requisition will go in.
Yeah, but you see, you have to be a preferred customer to get the 10% discount.
So I've got to work
the VIP service.
So I've got to get my card and get it stamped with the right number of points.
That's right.
Guess so.
That's right.
So
you order 10
My
body parts to get the
loyalty
11th one free.
Yeah, I got to get a loyalty card, and then it has to be punched or X'd up.
After certain points, whenever you go to a church, you swipe in your card, and after so many prayers, eventually they send you a letter saying, "Okay, you've accumulated this many points. You're entitled to a hand now."
Oh no! Or it can be like when you go to like an arcade or something, you get all like the little tickets. Like tickets, and you need like a bajillion tickets to like buy the Xbox. It's like that.
And
the bajillion tickets is a leg.
I've been playing.
And are there specials? Can you get a 2-for-1? Like
eyeballs.
Maybe you could get a hand and a shoulder or a foot.
It depends.
Toe.
You might get lower grade quality. Like if you don't have enough tickets, you'll get a hairy hand instead of a nice manicured one.
That's does the part match? I mean, if
Not
It's the wrong
necessarily.
color.
Not necessary. Because you got to remember, the angel that running this shit, he just doesn't give a fuck. He's kind of probably laughing there, like, yeah.
That's right, because, I mean, if Kevin wanted another hand and his came out as manicured, from a lovely 15-year-old.
Then he would realize how amazing he looked and get the other hand manicured.
Exactly.
That's true.
What happens if you get a leg, but you get a shorter one?
It's the wrong length.
It's the wrong length.
Then you just pray and it'll lengthen.
So all your life you kind of running with it.
So you've got to pray with measurements then.
Also, does it come with a warranty?
The warranty.
That's right. You need You need to know your stats, guys. Out there in the land, you got to take all your body measurements, write them down to make sure the order comes in great. And it comes in by FedEx too.
Yeah, I mean, that poor guy, that poor angel that's doing the requisitions, and they're piling up. Now he's got to deal with warranties.
He just doesn't
So he's got
care.
to do the whole thing, every year or 10 years or 5 years?
I don't think he does it at all.
They're in the back playing ping pong with an eyeball.
and like hands is the paddles. Oh, come on, Greg. You can't leave me with a 2-year-old hand. You get the freaking like massive one. This is unfair.
Oh, we're evil. We're going to hell for this.
Oh, it's
For
okay.
sure.
I've accepted my lot in life.
So in the end, you can get a spare part if you're willing to pray for it.
Well, that sounds...
Pray to play.
The whole thing just makes so much sense.
Oh my gosh. Sorry, I just had like the best realization. I wonder if they also use it for angels as like a Build-A-Bear? where they can like sneak in there on their like days off and be like, hey, look guys, I made like this creature.
Is that how Trump had such small hands?
Yes. Yes, it is.
I guess they do that during their break, just make these lovely little creatures with 18 legs and, 5 heads and 17 eyeballs.
Look, guys, I made the human centipede.
All right, I'm putting a stop to this because our guest is online.
It can't get any better.
So let's go to a quick pause, and when we come back, we'll be talking to. Don't bring that story up with Robert, okay? Whatever you do.
Why? It's hilarious. I love that movie.
We'll be talking to Robert Stanley of the Right to Reason podcast. So stay with us.
Oh, my eyes. They hurt.
Hi, I'm the Supreme Irreverend Dr. Randy Tyson from the Legion of Reason Diversion. Join me and my co-hosts, Christine Shelska, Twyla, and Nate Phelps, as we explore issues at the intersection of atheism, humanism, and skepticism. Topics range from alternative medicine to the interference of religion in public policy. We often have special guests to help us understand the topic du jour. Previous guests include biologist Jerry Coyne, ex-Muslim author Ali Rizvi, philosopher Peter Boghossian, and the late physicist Victor Stanger. You can watch us on the Legion of Reason YouTube channel or subscribe to the audio version through your favorite podcatchers such as iTunes or Stitcher. And don't forget to like the Legion of Reason Facebook page.
Nine million children die every year before they reach the age of 5. Any God who would allow children by the millions to suffer and die in this way either can do nothing to help them or doesn't care to. He is therefore either impotent or evil. But this to me is the true horror of religion. It allows perfectly decent and sane people to believe by the billions what only lunatics could believe on their own. If you wake up tomorrow morning thinking that saying a few Latin words over your pancakes is going to turn them into the body of Elvis Presley, you have lost your mind. But if you think more or less the same thing about a cracker and the body of Jesus, you're just a Catholic.
Now, if you've never heard our next guest, this is just a sample of what his podcast is like.
Welcome to the Right to Reason podcast. I'm your host, Robert Stanley. Today we're dipping our microscope into the warm, gooey center of the mind of a Trump supporter. We're going to be talking to Jeremy Montanez. He voted for Trump, but now he's changed his mind. Let's find out why.
It's the Right to Reason podcast.
I'm Jeremy Montanez, former CNN panelist. You're listening to The Right to Reason. It's okay to change your mind.
Well, joining us online is our old friend, Robert Stanley from the Right to Reason podcast. Robert, thank you so much for joining us again at Left of the Valley.
Happy to be here, sir.
No, you say that now.
He knows.
Steve.
He knows what he's getting into.
On the snazzy dresser or the dancer thing.
You're a snazzy, snappy dresser and a snazzy dancer. Of course you are. Ha-ha. You know,
That's the only reason I did the show. I just like hearing that.
You know, you were actually requested by some of our listeners.
No way.
Yeah, absolutely. Then I found out it was your wife.
Oh.
I found out too late it was your wife requesting that. I was like, all right. Well, you can tell her on her behalf that yes.
Please have him back on.
Well, you know, the funny thing is she came on one of our Facebook group and she asked to become part of the group. And I had like little questions to come in. And one of the questions is, what would you like to see on the show? And she asked for more Robert Stanley.
You weren't even like joking.
No, I wasn't joking. It's actually true.
Actually, didn't she suggest that we actually get him to move up here? By himself?
I'm not sure the world is ready for that. She probably would like a day off, though.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't heard, Robert Stanley is the host of the Right to Reason podcast, and since he's become a good friend, and of course there's a huge bromance between me and Robert for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I got a semi for you right now.
Always fun to have you on. One of these days we are going to meet face to face. I just know it's going to happen.
Yeah, you guys can have me up there, and we can talk about a gaggle of moose or whatever they're called.
There we go.
We can teach you how to build an
Or
igloo.
Congress of Baboon. Yeah, that's right. We'll just teach them about Canadian fine art. Teach you how to build an igloo. All right. Robert, for maybe some of our listeners that didn't catch the first show with you, maybe you'd be so kind to give us a bio of who Robert Stanley and the Right to Reason podcast is.
Well, I can't talk about my history in the CIA. That's all confidential. But
Yeah,
I
like
can
us.
discuss my podcasting career. About a year and a half ago, I guess, I started with the Right to Reason podcast that you can find at therighttoreason.com or at patreon.com/right. But did I say that like the radio voice? I say it so many times. It's like it's trained. It's like a muscle memory in your brain where you just say it the same way over and over. But anyway, but yeah, I have theists on the show, and we'll do debates. We'll do political debates. I had a racist fascist recently.
That was a hard
that was-
episode to get through.
Yeah, it was very difficult to. That one, it really had a negative effect on me after the recording. I was just bummed out.
I want to get
started
into
knocking
that
back whiskeys.
because you've been doing these kind of shows lately. I mean, you had us on the show. You had you're usually pretty lighthearted and everything, but lately you've been doing some shows that are pretty, I would say, hard hitting. And they really make you think, and I really applaud you for doing that. And that was one of them where you actually brought one of your most recent shows. You brought on a gentleman who's actually a racist and
like a pro-Hitler Nazi guy.
Yeah, exactly.
What the fuck?
Well, that was my first question. What the hell, Robert? I mean, are you doing this because you figure that we need to talk about these subjects, or do you feel that maybe a lot of people would say, you're giving them exposure? Maybe that's not such a great thing.
Very, very fair question. I really debated that. Is it a good idea to give that kind of hateful speech a platform?
Mm-hmm.
But ever since Trump, and we all remember Tiki Torches in Charlottesville, and this thing is growing. So we can, I think it's one thing to say, should we talk to a pedophile and then let that pedophile promote his book or his website or something, and now this becomes a connection hub to other creeps out there that want to use that and at that point it's like, well, hold on, I don't want to offer my platform to you to spread this kind of junk. But what if, like, this pedophile thing was taken over, kind of like the Catholic Church is, you know what I mean? Where it's like it seems to be in our politics, it seems to be just growing in popularity. Maybe we should be talking about it at that point, because this is a conscious threat that needs to be addressed. And that was my intentions.
Mm-hmm. And I also think in America that so many people don't realize it's coming back, and they'll deny it. Because up here I have a sister who thinks racism is over and no one's racist anymore. So it's I find sometimes shining a light on the fact that yes, there are still people who 100% think there are lesser races, they still exist, and they're teaching their children that.
I think it really depends on the topic as well, because a lot of people, for example, say if we're going to go into politics, let's talk about Donald Trump. A lot of people, I even had a message this week about a gentleman saying, the more exposure you give to Donald Trump, the more power you give him in a way. It would be better if we actually ignored him
Not
altogether.
necessarily. He already has power.
Well, no, I don't mean necessarily power as political power, but this is exactly what he wants.
Well, I think there's a difference between exposure and enlightened dialogue. Mm-hmm. When you have somebody who has views that are hateful or spread a lot of dissent and so forth, and you give that person just a blank mic, just an open mic, and say, go ahead, tell us about your website, and it's just 50 minutes of that person talking. Now you're promoting that person's ideas. But if you challenge and you're in a dialogue so that they can state, white supremacists are the best and people of color are the worst, you have a chance to challenge. Now you're adding a voice for the average person to say, oh, well, that's their idea, but oh, that's why it's wrong. That's why, and perhaps you're helping somebody understand a point of view and being able to have that kind of dialogue with others who they might know that spout the same kind of crap. At least you can come back and say, yes, but. Not that they might, but you're at least giving both sides and more weight to the to the intelligent side rather than to the other. Do you think that has a point, Robert?
Yeah, I think that's a really good dichotomy that you're presenting there, where there's just the open forum. Let's just let you have the space and time and give you our undivided attention, despite what you're saying as being a horrible thing. And then there's we're going to confront you and expose you for what you are. And I'd like to think that it was successful. I mean, it by the end of the podcast, you didn't just hear somebody who's trying to present themselves as, an intellectual, honest of evolution and this Murray's bell curve bullshit and all that, But by the 1 hour in, you go, this is just another conspiracy theorist. He's just like a flat earther. He's denying the Holocaust. He thinks Jews are responsible for 9/11. He thinks that, he's smarter than a black guy just because of the color of his skin. I mean, what a ridiculous fucking idiot. And I think that's the message that came out. Unfortunately, it was just this morning I got a little ding. I never read my YouTube comments. I learned very early on that only psychopaths comment on YouTube. But anyway, I just got a comment just this morning that said, I agree with Jimmy being the guest that was on the fascist episode. And that, just that alone. And I know it's just one random YouTube comment. Who cares? We're all trying to trudge through the marketplace of ideas together, and you get some crazy stuff out there. But just that little comment just made me think, I don't know, was it the right thing to do? I'm not sure.
Remember what you just said, only psychopaths comment on YouTube.
That's true.
Yeah.
No, I have to commend you, Robert, because I listened to that episode twice, and really the poise that you showed, and you were very respectful and really calm, and at the end you were almost encouraging, now you weren't really wagging your finger at the guy, but I thought you demonstrated a lot of class, if I gotta say that.
Well, thanks, man. It blew my mind, and it wasn't even like a bulleted point question. It just happened organically through the conversation. But whenever I asked him, if your wife turned black overnight, would you still love her? And the guy goes silent, he really, you could tell he was thinking. He just sat there in silence, and I didn't even truncate silence on it. I didn't edit it out. I just left it like that because I'm like,
it's important.
Listen to the loudness of his silence right now. And then unfortunately, it broke my heart, man, when he goes, yeah, I would leave her. I'd leave her and the child inside her.
I actually don't believe that for a second. The way he hesitated to answer that, I think he just wanted to save face at that point.
Yeah, he's got a lot of hateful little white buddies that he was afraid would hear that and call him, what they call him. So yeah.
Is this a new direction you're taking the Right to Reason into? You're going to maybe start doing some much more serious shows, or are you going to stick with some of the wackiness like we did?
The whole Kavanaugh thing's got me really fucked up, man. And I was thinking,
are you ready to apologize for your country at this point, Robert?
That might be appropriate. Yeah, but I was thinking what we should do is an episode on sexual abuse. We covered real quickly with Holy Kool-Aid and Here and How podcast, Thomas Westbrook, the sex abuse scandal.
Yes.
But with the Catholic Church. But I was thinking maybe we should just have on Dr. Caleb Lack from Secular Therapist Project and Sharon Frankel. From Habeas Humor, she's a lawyer, and Matthew Maxson from Odd Atheist Friends, Deborah McTaggart from Beyond the Trailer Park, and some people here are going to be offering legal opinions. Some are going to be offering psychological experience as a therapist, how to get through these kind of things, and then some of the people are going to be victims themselves, sharing their message and having a lot of courage. So I guess things are getting a little serious. I would like to goof off in the near future. I got a Muslim named Kenny the Muslim.
Kenny the Muslim.
Kenny the Muslim, and he's a nice guy. I was about to say something bad about him. He's a nice guy, but it's a lighter debate. It's not as heavy as some of that stuff in the past where, this guy, he's going to be hitting you with the, a Bayesian theorem of how to, like Blake Juta, style stuff. But it's more like he just says, well, come on, look, here's what the Quran says. Isn't that beautiful? And it's like, no, it's not. And then unfortunately, he does get a little serious toward the end of the conversation because he starts supporting how Muhammad was a pedophile. And yeah, the fun's over at that point. And that's actually the only debate I've ever had where I had to shut it off because I said, look, I'm getting too upset, man. I cannot just sit here and listen to this bullshit. So it really started out lighthearted. Obviously, all of his points are stuff that if you were an atheist for a week, you listen to one Chris Hitchens debate, you destroy this guy overnight. I mean, no problem. But then by the end of it, I guess maybe things are getting a little serious. I don't know. I'm not getting serious. I'm still a goofball. I think the world's getting fucked up, man.
I was about to say, I think the world's just realizing how serious this issue is.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I'm still commending you for keeping it really classy and calm because I'm listening to your podcast and I'm screaming at the radios. What, you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, no, calm, cool, and collected. Robert's handling this, But, kudos to you, man, for being so a cool cucumber on the fire like that.
Yeah, well, I was high, so there's that.
No, I think the planning of having your show on sexual abuse is one that's really needed. I think you'll do justice to it. Your guests sound brilliant, and the timing is good. So I hope you're not just considering it. I hope it's in the works and you're doing it.
Yeah.
In the works. Yeah, we've got a couple people already lined up. Others are still scheduling, so we're gonna try to put that together. I gotta be honest. As much as I really want to address this topic, especially right now, as women are probably very discouraged after what they saw with the Kavanaugh hearing and the fact that they're still going to go through with it. They're handing it over to the Senate to see if they'll go ahead and get them appointed.
You really think
They're
women
doing
are
an
discouraged?
FBI investigation first.
Well, we were talking about this earlier, and you'll hear it when you listen to the podcast.
He has sex during the podcast when we plays that podcast.
Yeah.
He's told us that all.
Well, not if it's like a sexual abuse episode.
But we
things would probably go limp right around there.
But,
the conversation might dry up a little.
Yeah, well, we were talking about the fact that now there's an FBI, that we were discouraged when Christine Ford gave her testimony on Thursday, but since there is going to be an people, there's a feeling that she is being taken seriously, which will probably, hopefully, start to help other women.
For me personally, I was discouraged for the government, but just seeing Dr. Ford come forward with the poise and strength she did, I think will be a ripple effect, hopefully, to show a lot of other women who have gone through similar things that, yes, men might not understand yet. They might not think what they've done is wrong, but there are people starting to listen.
Robert, can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah. I'm still recovering from that last day, but I think that's really encouraging what you guys are saying. And maybe I'm looking at it in a negative way. Like, I can't even believe it got this far that they still are going to, allow the appointment. But you're right. That's a really great point.
Well, you have
yeah. I'm sorry. Please go ahead with your question.
When you think about Anita Hill in 1991, 1992 marked more women in Congress than ever before. It was the start of the Me Too movement moving extremely slowly. But this midterms, and I'm thinking after that, more women, I'm almost positive, are going to get into politics. And the more women there are, the more optimistic we can be that the tide will turn in the favor of women being believed and honored, and the less they will be re-victimized when they come forward.
Well, you're not equally represented in the United States. You're just not. And our whole founding of the country, was, well, what's this taxation without representation? Well, women are paying their fair share. They're going to work more now than they ever have in our history. and they are not equally represented. So yeah, I would really love to see that, Nancy. I think that'd be great. How much are we loving Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? She's fucking kicking ass.
Yeah, she is. Robert, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but you just you mentioned your wife and your daughter. She's 13. Are they following this? And if not, how do you tell them about these events? How do you inform, especially your daughter, about what's going on? Because this could affect her future profoundly.
I was cooking dinner and just kind of threw the comment out there, and I don't even know if she was really listening because she is 13. I mentioned something about a guy running to be a Supreme Court justice, and then I thought, well, I got to explain what Supreme Court justice does, and what the role of the that is, and so it was a little bit heavy for her. She's sharp as a tack, but all the different levels that we'd have to get into, I just kind of threw it out there softly. But for the wife, she's been following it more closely than I have, and she's fucking pissed.
Understandable.
And to the point where we'll be talking, and I'm like, well, technically there is no way to know for sure, and she just and I'm like, whoa, no, I'm saying that knowledge is a subset of belief, and whenever we're dealing with logic, honey, she's just like, So I mean, she's a sweetheart. I'm making her out to be kind of like a bee about it, but she is angry. She's very upset, and justifiably so.
If anybody wants to send something to Robert, mail it to the doghouse right beside his house there, because that's where he's been residing for the past couple of days.
Well,
and Nancy on the 3rd floor.
Well, your daughter is at the age where the boys her age are just getting to the point that they're thinking about girls and maybe learning a little bit about sex. So even though she's not at the age where she can grasp everything that's going on with Kavanaugh and that part of it, she's going to be able to understand what her role is or can be as compared to the boys, and she could get hit on in the next couple of years as well.
She's 13. I'm sure it's happened already.
It may have happened already. So that's the level.
No, it hasn't,
that's a
Nancy.
level where you. It has happened.
No, I was being overly like no.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right though.
I mean, that's a level where you are in terms of parents.
It's really depressing when you realize how young girls start getting sexualized. Like the first time I was like out in town and like followed, and like I'm pretty sure if I was alone, the dude probably would have raped me. I was 14.
Wow.
Jesus.
And like I knew this guy was following me because he kept looking at me and smiling, and when I got off the bus, he got off after me. But I was with an older sister, and he didn't realize I was with my older sister, and then we went one way and he went the other way and kept looking back at me. And I was 14, and that wasn't even the first sexual encounter I'd had. Like, by then, I had had, like, 6.
Jesus.
The crazy thing is, I don't think men have any concept of what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
And because, I remember, because I do night classes pretty regularly, and I was leaving my poli-sci class, and it ends at 9 p.m. It goes 6 to 9. 3 hours of that shit. It's not fun. But anyway, but I'm leaving, and I didn't get my little tag that you have to get to be able to park in the close parking lot, So long story short, I have to walk a long ways or pay them the $10 for the late fee. I refuse to do that. I'm a cheapskate, so I walk it every time. Anyway, I'm just petty. So I called the wife because it was just at the beginning of this Kavanaugh thing. It was the last time I was at class, and I called the wife and I say, you know what? I'm walking through 3 different parking lots in the dark. There's nobody around, and I feel totally fine. I'm whistling Dixie.
I would literally
have
like
no
911
idea
on my phone. Be like, I'm going to die.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
so you know where to
and
find
I
my
was just
body.
saying to her, because we had just been talking about the Kavanaugh thing, and I just said, honey, I have no idea what your life is like just in regular stuff like walking in a parking lot. And anybody that says, well, come on, there's no male privilege. Are you fucking nuts? Just that alone.
Literally,
that's a privilege that I have. I am exhausting a little less energy into having to worry about being raped.
In the middle of the day, I make sure if I'm like walking by a van or something that like I'm not super close and there's other people around.
I think Robert's got a great point. I think a lot of guys don't realize how foreign that is because a lot of women live in a constant world of fear. And you can see that by the body language when they're walking down the street. You know, they'll often have their arms crossed, which is, of course, a big symbol of, you know, staying on the inside and stuff like that. And Robert's absolutely right. I'm a fairly big guy.
Or we have the bitch walk. There's also the bitch walk that's like, get the fuck away from me, I'll beat the shit out of you.
And the way to do that, sorry to cut you off here, Kevin, is have in mind,
you're murdering
I'm going
someone.
to kill somebody and walk.
Yeah.
Nobody will bother you.
Think about the energy you're investing. That's negative energy.
Absolutely.
You know, like I'm not trying to get all like a David Avocado Wolf Crystal stuff. I'm just saying there's positive use of energy and negative, and this is something that you're having to do.
You're not thinking about dancing in a field of daisies. You're thinking, what murder weapon am I using? Who am I stabbing?
And that to me is amazing because I'm a fairly big guy, and I know right now I start work often very, very early in the morning. I could walk in across town half naked if I wanted to, and I have no compulsion whatsoever that somebody's going to jump me, unless it's a guy of like 20 guys, and I say, okay, maybe then I have this situation. But aside that never ever crosses my mind. Yeah. But to be in the skin of a woman that is, especially a small woman, if she's not very big, to be constantly in fear like that is just absolutely astounding to me.
My daughter is about my size, which is like 4'11" and a half, 5 feet. And when she was,
but you know kung fu.
Yeah, when she was I think 11. She and her brother. I have 3 children, so she and the middle son both went into Taekwondo, and for different reasons, but I wanted my daughter to be able to understand that she had power and that she wasn't defenseless and that she could have confidence. Not that if somebody, a big guy that's going to come near her, she's not going to be 100% protected because of it, but at least she'd have some idea of where to strike and what to do and how to defend herself. And she did really well. She got to brown belt. And it was as much of a sense of confidence for her and a sense of a little peace for me that when she went out on a date or she was driving the car here or there, that chances were that she would, at least have the presence of mind to know what to do. It was a great investment. I mean, she's not an aggressive person at all, and it's not anything that she would use, to show off. But it was one way to help her, cope with some unpleasantness.
And, for myself, another thing, looking back at it, this ridiculous that I did, is I was terrified of being raped. And when I was 18, I got my doctor to get me on birth control. I wasn't sexually active, didn't have a boyfriend, but I was terrified of being raped and getting pregnant from it. Like, I had no other reason to be on birth control. But I just, I couldn't, in my brain, I'm like, I might be raped. And I don't want a baby. Because at the time, abortion wasn't really a thing that I was...
Well, anyway, we're kind of diverting here because we're supposed to be talking to Robert and his show, and we're talking about everything but that so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's so real, though.
They're important messages.
I get it.
Robert, like you said, you've gone into something a bit more serious with your show. Are there topics you would really not want to get into? Where's your limit? Where do you feel you don't want to? There's something you don't even want.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I referenced when I was just trying to do an analogy of what would be appropriate platforms as opposed to inappropriate platforms. Like Nancy was saying, anything kid stuff, I just don't want to fuck with it. Yeah. So that that would probably be a level I wouldn't want to go to. I was speaking to my criminology professor. Because for my degree, criminal justice is kind of a part you have to have some experience with classes in, and I was speaking to him, and he said he might be able to get it set up for me to go to the local penitentiary and speak to some people that are actual serial killers and try to understand what makes someone think that way, and what do we have in common? What do we have that's different, to try to get maybe a litmus test for the listener to say, wow, these are thoughts that I've had potentially, or maybe it's okay to have those thoughts. Maybe it's the action, and where do we draw the ethical line? So that might be a future project.
That's
interesting.
Do you feel that being a U.S. citizen, that maybe the incarceration system in the U.S. is one that functions very well, or do you feel that maybe you guys could improve that system?
Yeah, it sucks. It's horrible. Well, I mean, we've gone to private prison, and our capitalist agenda here, which now you're putting a price on people.
Yeah,
and it really confirms. You talk to any black guy in America, and he'll tell you, oh yeah, the modern justice system is just kind of something that kind of grew out of those Jim Crow ways, out of that slavery style, and now we're actually putting a price on enslaving other people. And these private prisons use their prisoners to do labor.
Yes.
For the state, which I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but I think they should be paid a wage. But whether or not that's an appropriate use of prisoners' time, just the fact that it's a private industry doing it, there's no way that you can have any kind of ethical explanation for that. It's going to go badly, So that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, private companies have also known to take advantage of prison labor to do cutbacks in their own employees and employ prison labor. I've always wondered, as a Canadian, as soon as I step into the States, because apparently I'm this scary-looking guy, as soon as a police officer pulls me over, the first thing he asks me, he says, "Sir, have you ever been to prison?" And
really?
I said, yeah, it's the first thing he asked me. And I said, well, no. And he says, are you sure?
I think I'd remember that.
That's why I tell him. He says, well, is this like an American thing? Everybody goes to jail once? What is this? No, of course not. But it's right away, right off the bat. It's the two questions he asked me right off the bat.
I get that also.
Yeah, that's right.
I've never been to prison. I've been to jail a bunch. No, really.
For protesting?
So you're talking like local jail as opposed to penitentiary?
No, for protesting.
Yeah. Like I've never been to any kind of federal institution, but when I was in my early 20s, I goofed off a lot, and I even went to jail. I on my record, I have a weapons charge and an assault charge. As crazy as that sounds, but both of them are like not really that bad, which is typically what the criminal would say.
Himself from Robert Stanley and the Right to Reason podcast.
Well, no, one time I got pulled over, and the cop said, "Do you have any weapons on you?" And I'm like, "Oh, nothing other than my knife. I keep a knife with me at all times, just for my own protection." He says, "Do you mind if I see it?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he's like, "Don't put your hand in your pocket." Like he's like totally got all weird. I'm like, "Oh, easy, bro. I'm just." Guy in Texas. I'm a good old country boy. I keep a knife in my pocket. What are we supposed? You got to pick up the Southern accent depending on the kind of hat the police officer is wearing. If it's a cowboy hat, you got to be like, "Gosh darn it, buddy, let me tell you something." Got it. So he reaches in my pocket, pulls out. It's a butterfly knife, and he's like, "Why do you have this gang-affiliated weapon that opens with centrifugal force?" And I'm like, "Centrifugal force? Yeah, dude, you have to swing it. Like it's just a knife. I can get to it quickly if I need to." And he goes, "Yeah, well, you ain't getting to it right now. You're going to jail."
Wow, for a butterfly knife?
Wow.
In the state of Texas, you can carry. I got an AK-47. You can carry an AK-47 in your car loaded with one in the fucking chamber and the safety off, and that's totally legal. But you can't have a butterfly knife.
Wow.
It's like that story we did last week of the guy who ended up shooting in church.
Thank you, NRA. There just doesn't happen to be a knife equivalent to NRA.
Yeah, no kidding. See, I've never been to the States. I really don't want to go. I'm kind of terrified to go.
Don't blame me.
Well, you won't get stabbed. That's really illegal. So that's good.
I might get shot.
Yeah, you'll get shot a
You
lot.
also
you will
won't
be turned into Swiss cheese for sure, but no stabbing. We're good.
You also won't choke on a Kinder Egg.
And the other one was I'm airing some stuff today. We're getting real.
Go for it.
We're getting real at the Left at the Valley podcast. This is where things happen. Anyway, but yeah, the other one was just kind of a good old boy fight. I was with this girl. She cheated on me, and I went and beat up the guy she cheated on me with. And it was wrong. It was a wrong thing to do. It wasn't his fault. I was young. I think I was like 19 or something. And
yeah, but we were young and foolish back then, Robert. I've forgiven you since.
She had a lot of good things to say about you, Kev. I'll give you that.
No, I would never.
But yeah, I mean, it wasn't that bad. Like you hear that and you go, wow, a weapons charge and assault charge. This guy's a fucking animal. It's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you have to. It's the fact that you have to start explaining it, which kind of becomes a bit of a burden, right?
The funny thing is when you said it, and as I was responding to you, the first thing I thought of was it was because you were involved in some kind of a protest march of some kind. So there, I saw you as standing up for your rights and free speech, and doing your, after you did your deconversion and all that kind of stuff.
He just sounds like a good boy. He's not. Yeah. He's beating up people in the background. That's
I'm just a dude. But to bring it full circle though, is when I've heard senator after senator after senator be like, well, come on, Kavanaugh. He was just a young guy. Boys will be boys and that sort of thing. And I think that applies to certain stuff. Like, well, he got into a fight on the school bus, or even the way the Democrats were questioning him about were you getting drunk, and like we're all laughing about how look at this guy, he's a drunk, and he's like, I drink beer, I like beer, I still drink beer, and that's a big joke. But honestly, some of that shit's just regular shit. Who gives a fuck? But the difference is, rape is rape. Yeah. Sexual assault that's a totally different category, in my opinion. Where it's something that you say, well, it happened a long time ago. Well, that just means you got away with it for a long time, you son of a bitch.
Exactly. I think the moment, speaking of Kavanaugh, there's a line where we say boys will be boys, up to the point where he's on top of her and he's drunk, and it's hard to forgive, but you could be really, really generous. But when he puts his hand on her mouth,
at that
point is that you're guilty as hell now. That's it. At that point, it's like no, now you've really fucked up. So,
and she even said that in her testimony. She said that was the moment that really screwed her up. The moment that she spoke to her therapist about the most. That was the moment that she thought, I could die. That lets you know intent even more than just drunk, because drunk is one thing, but to try to cover up your crime, that means you're sober enough to recognize there are consequences for your actions. And the mere fact, Kamala Harris pointed this out perfectly, that she brought this up to her husband years before this hearing. She brought it up to her therapist years before this hearing. And, I think that we do have to remain skeptics, and we have to say, look, we don't know because we weren't there and all that. But I believe her because it sounds fairly credible. That seems like a really reasonable thing to say is I've been bringing this up. I've been dealing with this my whole life. So, yeah, I believe her. I don't know because we can't know. But I don't.
At the same
just
time,
listening to Kavanaugh, he doesn't seem very credible to me at all.
No.
Well, Kavanaugh seems like a cover-up kind of a guy. Okay, so if he was drinking with Mark Judge and he went through that period, if he had said, I went through a period as a teenage kid, I didn't know any better, I was showing off, I drank a little bit, but I turned into a decent human being. But no, he covers up and says, when I was in high school, I just paid attention to athletics, went to church. He denies that whole thing. He denies the fact that he had anything, when he was in Bush's office, he denies that he had stolen documents from the Democrats. It's a matter of he covers up things that he does and doesn't admit to him. And it's that characteristic, not the drinking, but the covering up and to trying to present an image that is untruthful as to who he really was and who he is. And that goes to character. And there's no, even if you don't look at the drinking per se, you have to realize this is a lifetime habit with him, to cover it, to shove it under the rug, and to assume that you're going to get away with it because you're being groomed for the Supreme Court.
And even in your former stomping grounds there, Nancy, here in Texas, my state, Republican Senator Ted Cruz is running up against Democratic candidate, a Democratic Socialist candidate, Beto O'Rourke.
Hey, I just sent in my absentee vote for Beto. I just, so
cool.
It's still my state for voting.
Nice.
Well, one of the one of the criticisms that Cruz brings up against Beto is that when he was 16, he got a DUI, and his daddy was a judge and got it thrown out because, even though he's on our team, that doesn't mean that there isn't such a thing as class warfare. He's a rich kid, and laws don't apply to people with money. But still, he has my support. I got a sign right in my front yard. But that was one of the claims that he brought up. Is he says, what about this guy? He said drunk, all the while hypocritically, because Cruz is supporting Donald Trump, who said that his wife was ugly. Yeah. He even posted on Twitter a picture of Melania next to Ted Cruz's wife. Like questioning his judgment and how he picked women, and trying to insult her and body shame her. And then he also accused his dad of killing Kennedy. I mean, it's craziness. But still,
he attacked Kennedy. We know that.
Yeah, but what Beto said is such a contrast to what Nancy was just pointing out, and how Kavanaugh responded to his drinking. Is Beto said, you know what? I made some mistakes. I was foolish, and I was offered a second chance, and I'm trying to do the right thing with that second chance. But more importantly than me, I don't want my mistakes to condone this kind of behavior. And I would encourage young people not to blah 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 blah. He used that, and he did it humble with humility, and he did it with a motive that was just beyond himself. And then you got a guy like Kavanaugh, like Nancy was saying, where they just deny, and it's all about me. I'm just a really great guy who goes to church.
Yeah, exactly. So, Robert, coming down the pipe there for the Right to Reason podcast, what do you got coming down the pipe? Well, what can we look forward to? Because I really, really enjoy your show. I really like to listen to it, and I recommend it to everybody I talk to. So, what's coming up?
We got Kenny the Muslim coming up this Sunday. We've got an actual former Trump supporter. He voted Donald Trump. But then he saw how racist and horrible Trump was with Puerto Rico and that sort of thing, and he changed his mind.
That's awesome.
He then gets put on CNN. CNN puts him on a panel with other people, and he actually speaks his mind. He talks about it. His name is Jeremy Montanez, really cool guy. Wow. And then everybody goes crazy because they say, oh, that's fake news. CNN's fake news. And this Jeremy Montanez guy, he was already a liberal. They're just faking that he didn't actually vote for Trump. Yeah. And the right-wing nuts have come out crazy about him. You can YouTube it right now. In fact, if you type in the guy's name, Jeremy Montanez, it doesn't even pull up what actually happened. It pulls up a bunch of right-wing YouTube videos and blogs and all sorts of stuff, totally trying to say that the guy is fake. And I just had him on the show, and the episode releases this Sunday. But he's receiving death threats. His life has been destroyed just by being a former Trump supporter and speaking out and saying, you know what, I apologize to the nation. I changed my mind. I fucked up. Wow. And you're not allowed to do that within that tribe, and they are coming after him. So we're going to talk to him this Sunday and get that all worked out. We got Kenny the Muslim coming up pretty soon. We've got a up-and-coming episode, hopefully we're still in the works, but dealing with this whole Kavanaugh hearing and talking to therapists and actual victims and trying to get a legal perspective on exactly what this means for women in America. So
Fantastic.
That's our future.
The show is the Right to Reason podcast, highly recommended. Robert, before I let you go, I gotta have you say hi. I'm Robert Stanley of the Right to Reason podcast, and I took a left to the valley.
Hi, I'm Robert Stanley from the Right to Reason podcast, and I took a left at the valley.
He says that with such greatness.
He does. Whoop, whoop.
And that was our friend Robert Stanley. Oh, Robert, we love you so much, buddy.
We do. We never know. We never know where the conversation is going to go with him.
But he's one of us.
Yes,
I mean,
he
really is.
If he wasn't living in Texas, he would be right here with us right now.
Absolutely.
And actually, I would probably let him take over the show because I think he's better than I. He's got a better voice, and he's got great ideas. And so, I mean, Robert, he's definitely one of us. So we'll have a great time with him. And the Right to Reason podcast, highly, highly, highly recommended. Become one of my favorite podcasts by far. And he always has some very interesting guests, some interesting music. God, I wish I had his talent to do that kind of stuff. I don't.
We've got other talents. We're just a good blend of different strengths.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for listening to the show with us today, and thank you for being with us. You can follow us at leftatvalley.com. You can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, at LETV Podcast. Send us an email, leftatvalley@outlook.com. Give us a 5-star review wherever you find us. It really helps us and it helps others find the show. Coming up next week, our old friend David Fitzgerald comes back, and he talks to us about John the Baptist.
Good.
The week after that, we get a visit from God himself. Brian Keith Dalton, Mr. Didi, comes back on the show.
We have John the Baptist and God
And
right
God.
in a row.
Double whammy.
Yeah.
The weekend after that, we'll have, for the first time, a heavy metal group
I am so
called
excited.
Predators. They're an atheist heavy metal group. This should be very interesting. And of course, at the end of the week, the month, I should say, we have our Halloween special. We'll be telling ghost stories around the virtual campfire. Should be fun.
Scary.
And after that, for November, we'll have our friend Thomas Westbrook will come back to talk to us about the Catholic Church and all the scandals.
You know what I like
That'll
about
be a
us?
fun episode.
Yeah, you know what I really like about us? There are a lot of podcasts that have a guest on, and then they go on to other guests. What we do is, when we have a guest that we know is interesting and we haven't had time to really explore all the ideas or all the things that they want to present, they come back. And our conversations with them get richer, they get deeper, they get to be more fun. And I think it's much more interesting to the audience, because now our guest becomes familiar to them and probably encourages them to look up their works or listen to their podcast, because we've widened their interest and we've enriched our show. It's just great. I love having recurring guests.
On that, what can I add? Thank you so much, guys. Until next time.
Do what you're told and believe in the God assigned by your parents. I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel.
Things are well. Are we on right now, or are we
Yeah,
just
we're
doing, like,
absolutely
fun
live. There's like thousands of people listening to us right now.
Nah,
We
he
are
lies.
live in
He
Canada.
Lies. He lies. Don't listen to him.
You're amongst the moose people. Remember what Tom called us?
What is the ratio of people to moose?
Fairly decent. Like maybe like 1 to 2.
No, 5 to 1. 5 moose for every person. No, I have no idea.
I mean, probably, right?
I think it's more like 2 people for every moose.
No.
You
think so? Sure.
Moose don't travel in herds. They're very sorry.
I'm sure there are more mises than
So-
people.
I think there's half as many moose.
So you really
as
think
there are
there's like
people.
17-something million moose that across the country?
Yeah, I'd say that. I don't know. I have absolutely no idea.
That's a good question. We'll have
But-
to Google that.
Canada's pretty fucking big.
Well, there are
they're
moose
everywhere.
crossings, so
And-
obviously there are enough moose to make the crossing.
Especially when you look at what's the fuck called? Like Manitoba,
Chocolate moose?
where it's all lakes. Moose love the fuck out of lakes. There's probably a fuck ton of moose in Manitoba.
And Christmas is coming up, so I get to watch it again.
I know. See,
Robert,
my kind of Christmas movie is Die Hard.
Is what?
Is Die Hard.
I'm trying to get hold of what's going on
That's
here.
my kind of
I
Christmas.
see, this is pandemonium as usual.
This is what you deal with every week.
Oh yeah, every week.
Right, and marijuana is going to be legal this week. And this is what we're like when we're sober.
I'm an atheist.